So Michael Jackson fans, they're going crazy over this new movie. Imagine you're just trying to watch the fucking movie and some dickhead won't stop dancing in the front row. That would piss me off. Now, the movie's done amazing numbers, right? I can't lie. It's the biggest opening week of any biopic in history, and Michael is played by his nephew, Jafar Jackson. Makes you wonder why they didn't just get one of his sons to play him, though, doesn't it? Probably because they look like this. Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Now, the movie critics and the fans of Michael Jackson are extremely divided about this movie. The fans love it because basically it's a tribute act to Michael Jackson and you can sing along without having to think about all of the serious allegations, which will make you feel a bit awkward if you're just wanting to have a little bit of a dance. The critics are basically saying it's PR with a big budget. It's not a biopic. It's just there to boost his music downloads and make a bunch of money for the family. Now, what's interesting is even his own daughter has acknowledged that this is far from a true story.
It's Hollywood, so it's fantasy land. It's not real. There's a lot of inaccuracy and there's a lot of just full-blown lies.
So even she says it. It's not storytelling, it's image management. And yes, I know she doesn't look anything like Michael. None of his kids do. We'll get to that later. So the main talking point is that this movie completely avoids the hard conversations around Michael Jackson. And that's the conversation that we're going to have today. We're going to take a look at every single allegation made against Michael Jackson in this video. So hold on to your Michael Jackson gloves, your hats. You might be a huge fan of his, but this is about the truth today. And before we jump into the dirty details, I have to give a big shout out to today's sponsor. Let me tell you about the most important app of this generation, because if you haven't got it yet, you absolutely need it. This is non-negotiable, lads, because for generations, men like me and you, we were able to view the female form online without persecution, without being made to feel like some sort of degenerate, being forced to scan our faces and enter our details as if we're doing something wrong. But in the UK, that is the new reality. That's the new normal. Well, not under my roof, it's not. And that is thanks to Surfshark. You see, I put my faith in Surfshark because it's a life-changing experience, this. And the best bit about it is its simplicity. You click on Surfshark on your phone, on your computer, on your app, whatever. Click I'm in America, 2 clicks, and boom, all of this nonsense that we're living with is removed, and I can be free to enjoy myself again without having to go through this nonsense. I'm a grown man, for God's sakes. And I can also enjoy football and boxing and fighting and other things that I can now have a little watch of. So if you want to cut through the red tape and enjoy your life to the fullest, download Surfshark immediately, right now. And when you do, please use my code. That would be great. Thanks. Just click the link in the description below, go to surfshark.com/Geordie, and you'll get 4 months extra of Surfshark added onto your deal for free. I've given you a lot of content over the years, lads, but just consider this is brotherhood stuff. Do you know what I mean? We got to look after each other in these times. And it's less than the price of a coffee a month, lads. So get it done. It's an easy win and you'll enjoy it. Big love to the greatness of Surfshark. But for now, enjoy the video. Lots of tweets like this saying it's crazy how many people don't know Michael Jackson was acquitted at trial due to a lack of evidence and inconsistencies from accusers. Michael Jackson was acquitted at trial. That is true. That was against one boy, by the way. That wasn't about the dozen of them that have accused him of this. So when people blanket statement this, well, he was proven innocent. Yeah, against one of the kids who accused him. What about the other fucking 11? And that's just the ones we know of, by the way. And I'm not even saying they're all telling the truth, but to use that statement as if Michael Jackson got found innocent against one person who accused him of the same thing 12 other people accused him of, or whatever it was, that means he was innocent for the rest of time and that anything anyone accused him of was automatically all false. I'm sorry, but that's just not logical. We've got to take every person's account one step at a time. Let's start with Jordan Chandler, who was the first kid to come out and publicly accuse Michael Jackson and actually take this legal. Now, allegedly, the grooming started with long phone calls, gifts, trips to Las Vegas, Monaco, Neverland, obviously. And then innocently, at the beginning, sharing a bed with him as Michael positioned himself as sort of a father figure role. This then allegedly escalated to kissing, hugging, and then fondling. And obviously, trigger warning throughout this video, there's going to be some dark stuff said. So, like, Michael then allegedly escalated that into him masturbating Jordan, both with his hands, and then giving him oral sex. Allegedly, then he would make Jordan masturbate investigate him. And apparently this would continue for months and months and months. I'm talking like loads of nights spent together, not just in Neverland, but also in hotels. Now, where people try and poke holes in the story is that apparently Jordan, when he was originally asked about this stuff, he denied it completely. He told his mother nothing happened repeatedly. There was an investigator, I think he denied it too as well. And it took him a while to come out with what he thought really happened. And one of the main things that the Jackson fans will point to as the reason that this can't be true is that when Jordan Chandler was asked to describe Michael Jackson's cock and balls, he apparently described Michael as being circumcised when in actual fact he wasn't. This was confirmed by the cops who checked Michael Jackson's junk out, apparently. Now, they've got a recording of Jordan Chandler's dad speaking about what he was going to do to Michael Jackson, and a lot of people think he comes across as very money hungry.
This attorney I found, I interviewed several, and I picked the nastiest son of a bitch I could find. Once I make that phone call, this guy is just going to destroy everybody in sight. Any devious, nasty, cruel way that he can do it. And I've given him full authority to do that. It'll be a massacre if I don't get what I want. If I go through with this, I win big time. I will get everything I want, and they will be destroyed forever. They will be destroyed. June is going to lose Geordie. She will have no right to ever see him again. Yeah. That's a fact, Dave. That's what. Does that help? Michael's career will be over. Does that help Jordan? Michael's career will be over. And does that help Jordan? That's irrelevant.
Now, I'll let you make your minds up in the comments if that sounded money hungry. I think he definitely sounds very angry, and he does make a clear reference of if I don't get what I want. But the whole purpose of the conversation sounds just angry and wanting to destroy as much as anything to me. Now, when this went public, Michael Jackson made a very public denial of the allegations.
It was a nightmare, a horrifying nightmare. But if this is what I have to endure to prove my innocence, my complete innocence, so be it. Throughout my life, I have only tried to help thousands upon thousands of children to live happy lives. It brings tears to my eyes when I see any child who suffers. I am not guilty of these allegations, but if I am guilty of anything, it is of giving all that I have to give to help children all over the world.
Now, what's interesting about his statement is that he was very clear. If this is what I have to do to prove my innocence, I'm prepared to do that. Naturally, that means you're prepared to go to court and prove your innocence, fight to show everyone, hey, I'm innocent of this. Which makes it even more interesting why he paid this kid off. $23 million he paid this kid. And the Michael Jackson fans will explain that away of, oh, well, it was an insurance payout, really. And did he really have the final say on that? He absolutely had say on whether this kid got paid. That is a fact. Now, does that mean he did it? Not exactly. But his own words in that video were, I want to prove my innocence. Well, you've gone the opposite direction to do that, haven't you? And look, officially, the kid could have taken it further after getting paid off. Was he going to do that realistically? With $23 million in the bank? I doubt it. Not when the kid doesn't want to have to go to court either, when he's a little fucking kid. No matter how big of a Michael Jackson fan you are, that is a terrible look just for a kickoff before we even look at the other allegations. And realistically, if you are the age Michael Jackson was when this happened, around about 34, 35 years old, there should be no more allegations, should there? Because logically, you've been burned by this kid. You've realized that you put yourself in a very vulnerable position. Let's say he is innocent. Well, then you learn your lesson and go, look, you got too close, you let your guard down, and you behaved inappropriately, which is then left you wide open for something like this to happen. No more sleepovers with little kids when you're in your fucking 30s. Now, after these allegations were successfully swept under the rug, Michael Jackson would make a very interesting decision in starting to date the daughter of Elvis Presley, Lisa Marie Presley. And by dating, I mean they dated for a minute and he got married to her as quick as humanly possible, like 6 months after this. Bearing in mind, Michael had been pictured with the occasional woman here and there, but that was never a relationship. Although the press like to say he was in relationships with women, he was never in a relationship with women. There was never sexual intercourse taking place. None of them said that was the case. There was no romance, it was only friendship. So this came out of fucking nowhere, and when it came, Michael made sure to rub it in front of people's faces as much as humanly possible. So we've never seen Michael Jackson romantic with a woman, kissing a woman, anything like that. And then all of a sudden he gets married to this chick out of nowhere who happens to be famous because he loves a bit of fame. And then he's kissing her on stage and rubbing it in everyone's face immediately after these allegations. Is anyone else connecting a few dots here? Like, the speculation is he was never into women, or men for that matter, but he needed to fix his image up. And who better than with the daughter of Elvis Presley? You're going to get the whole world talking about it. It's going to really make you look like you're just a normal guy into normal things. And it's going to stop those questions about what has been happening recently and move it on to, so, music royalty. You lot getting married anytime soon? You're going to have babies, are you? It was genius, actually. The problem was, it was bullshit. It didn't last 2 fucking minutes. And when Lisa Marie Presley was questioned about this later, the way she answered it, oh my God.
You said you loved him.
Yes.
Do you think he loved you?
Wow. God, it's hard for me to answer that question. I don't know the answer to that.
Imagine you got married to him and you don't know if he loved you. What does that say, man? Now, she admitted that when she got with Michael Jackson and he was coming off the back of this pedo scandal, he was apparently a virgin at 35. Again, this is one of the most famous, richest, been famous his whole fucking life, had opportunities with plenty of other celebrity women, and he's never had sex before, and he's 35 years old, and he's getting married for the first time right after a pedo scandal. And Lisa Marie was asked by Howard Stern, like, did you actually have sex with him?
Sexually satisfied by Michael Jackson?
You know, I see.
The answer is either yes or no.
Well, the answer would be, would I have married someone that I wasn't?
Would I have married someone if I wasn't? Not a yes, is it? Honestly, the more I've watched of her interviews, the more I think she is humiliated by the fact that she was absolutely played in that scenario, and she just doesn't want to come out and admit it. Because it's a humiliating thing to say, I got married to a guy who used me as an alibi or some shit like that, basically, and I never had sex with him and I got married to him. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it? Now, one person who wasn't buying Michael Jackson's bullshit was Elvis Presley's wife, the mother of Lisa Marie Presley.
I felt that Michael was using her. His popularity was kind of going down. And then all of a sudden, now that they're together, it went up big time. So
you think it was a cynical move?
I do. Mm-hmm. And I told her.
And this was around the time of the allegations surrounding him.
That's right. Yeah. And so, and he knew that. And he never came around me. You know, she left him because he was never around. She never saw him hardly. So that said a lot to me as well.
They were only together for a year, and even still, she's saying he was never even there then. You know why? Because he didn't need to be. The only reason he was with her was for PR. He wasn't shagging her. He wasn't having a fucking relationship. He didn't give a shit about any of that because he's got no interest in women. And what's mental is after him and Presley split up, he then quickly gets with this woman who was just a fan who basically was like, look, I'll have kids for you. I hear you want kids. I'll have them. And let's be real, right? She ain't fucking Presley. She ain't the most beautiful woman in the world. He didn't give a shit, man. He wasn't going to stick his dick in her anyway. And when she was asked, are you having a sexual relationship? This is how she responded.
You had sex? Is that how?
Why are you guys so interested in what? Okay, I've got to tell you something.
Yeah.
When that door closes, that's my business. That is not your business. And that is extremely inappropriate to ask.
Little defensive, that, wasn't it? Why would you be defensive about someone saying, does your husband fuck you? It's the easiest question to answer in the whole fucking world, isn't it? They're defensive and they never give a straight answer because he's not shagging them. I think Lisa Marie Presley in one other interview was like, yeah, we consummated the marriage, but it wasn't believable. This girl, Debbie Rowe, she tries to keep up appearances and pretend like this is a real relationship. She later admitted, I didn't even live with this guy. I didn't even live with him. She was around to have his kids. That was her thing, but she didn't live with him. It became common knowledge that she was basically paid by Michael Jackson to have his children and then fuck off, hand the kids over and get out the picture. And she admitted, we didn't even use Michael Jackson's sperm. It wasn't even his fucking sperm. Now, Michael denied that.
Your wife gave you 2 children as a present because she knew you wanted to be a father.
Yeah, that's a lovely gesture.
Well, it's an incredible gesture.
Yeah, there are surrogate mothers who do that every day. That happens every day in the world.
Is that
it's happening right now?
Is that how Blanket was born as well?
I used a surrogate mother or my own sperm cells. I had my own sperm cells and my other 2 children. They're all my children, but I used a surrogate mother, and she doesn't know me, I don't know her, and that's how I was born.
How did you select the mother out of interest?
It didn't matter to me, as long as she was healthy. I didn't care what race. I said, as long as she's healthy and she doesn't have her vision's good and her intellect. I want to know how intelligent she is.
Would you have conceived a child with a black woman?
Of course.
As a surrogate mother?
Of course.
But I've seen Blanket, and I think safe to say his mother was probably white.
No, you're wrong.
I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Let's just pull up a picture of Blanket for reference here. So this geezer here, Blanket, what a name. His dad's Michael Jackson, born a black man. Yeah, we know what he ended up looking like, but born a black man. And his mother, according to Michael Jackson himself, is a black woman. Anyone else see what's so a bit puzzling about that?
So Blanket's mother's black?
Yeah.
But Blanket's so light.
Black people were called colored people because we come in all colors. From very white, as white as my hand, to very dark, it's the dark of your shirt.
I'm not sure black people are called black people because they can be really white. Not to trigger a race conversation on this fucking video. We've got enough to contend with the Michael Jackson fans in the comments. But looking at this picture, I don't believe you. Sorry, Mike.
My father has blue eyes. And when they see Paris, they always think Debbie, but that could easily be my father's genes,
Really?
Of course.
Yeah, sure. So just to be clear, these three kids have the same dad, and that man's name is Michael Jackson. The same Michael Jackson who looked like this as a child. And this is the thing about Michael. When you speak such lies to this level, and no one calls him out, no one's like, the guy's a fucking liar. That's where I'm like, I have to look at the way you talk about everything. Because if you're lying about this, and the identity of your own children, what won't you lie about? Now, after Michael got rid of Debbie Rowe here, he never had another relationship or even a romantic link to another woman for the rest of his entire life. For the next 15 years, until he died, not one more woman. He got what he wanted out of it, which is children. Wasn't even his own children, clearly. And then he left. Why is that? Because Michael Jackson had no interest in women. The only people he wanted to hang out with, and this is crystal clear when you look at Michael Jackson's life, was children. And despite the first allegation going worldwide on the news and everything that brought with it and the $23 million payout that was made to Jordan Chandler, Michael Jackson continued to find himself in accusation after accusation for the remainder of his life. This guy's name is Jason Francia, who was the son of one of the maids at Neverland. He alleged that when he was at Neverland, Michael would start tickle fights with him, which would turn into him touching him up. Originally, when he was questioned, he denied that this was happening. When he later said, yeah, it did happen, and he was asked, well, why did you deny it in the first place then? He said he didn't want people at school to think he was gay. Now, honestly, that for me sounds really plausible. Like, I think in a child's mind, they don't fully understand what is going on and that this is an adult-to-child situation here. And when you're a young kid, you're worried about people thinking you're gay and stuff like that. I think that's a fair explanation from a kid, if that's why you didn't say it in the first place. Now, interestingly, his mother was interviewed on camera at times about what she's seen as a maid at Neverland.
You caught your son and Michael Jackson in a compromising position.
I find Michael and my son in so close, Michael and lying in the sleeping bag, and my son getting closer to him. And I didn't like that.
In a dark room?
In the dark room.
When the police went into his parents' home and issued the search warrant, I know that they brought out lots of books of pictures, publicity pictures.
Publicity pictures, yes. Like from companies that they choose boys for commercials, or he will look and look and look and look all the time, all these boys.
Just sit and look through the books.
Yeah.
Perfectly normal way for a middle-aged man to spend his spare time, right? Just looking at pictures of young boys.
What was he doing?
Looking for boys. I think that's how he got one of his special friends.
Mike. This one particular boy you've told me about was with Michael for 2 years?
Yes.
Off and on, or solid?
So he was his special friend for all the time.
That sounds so bad, man. Special friend. It sounds so fucking bad. Now, this guy, Jason Francia, after his allegations were made, was paid off to the tune of $2.4 million. Another payoff. Now, to be fair, the Jackson fans will point to the fact that his story had been inconsistent. I think when he eventually testified about it on the trial of Michael Jackson, they were pulling apart details and saying, he said he blacked out. At this point, well, how does he remember that stuff? But the guy guy, when he finally testified, was like 25 years old, trying to remember what happened to him as a 7 to 10-year-old. I think you can allow him to make some mistakes like that. Now, the mother did sell a story to a tabloid for like 20 grand or whatever, and a lot of people look at it and go, well, see, financially motivated. And yeah, that is possible. I think that's a fair point. Does it completely disprove everything he says? No, but it isn't the best look. This is the next guy, Terry George here, pictured here with Michael Jackson. He'd went to meet Michael when he was performing in the UK as part of the Jackson 5 back in 1979. I think he knocked on his hotel and he was trying to interview him because he was like trying to get into like journalism as a young kid. Michael let him in, they swapped phone numbers, and he kept coming back for the remaining time that Michael was in the UK before continuing their friendship as a phone conversation.
He spoke about masturbation. About him masturbating. Did I masturbate? I never saw it coming. It wasn't something I expected. It just came out of the blue, really. He said, would you believe that I'm doing it now? And let me hear him on the telephone, and I could hear it.
And what did you think he meant by that?
Well, I knew what he meant by that because he was talking about it. He was talking about masturbation. I did feel uncomfortable. I can remember feeling uncomfortable. I felt awkward.
What are your thoughts when you put the phone down?
I thought that I didn't react as he wanted me to react. And I thought that perhaps he would never call me again, or I wouldn't hear from him again. You know, in hindsight, looking back at it now, I know that that type of conversation probably should never have happened, you know, and it probably wasn't natural.
Now, Terry George, he never reported Michael Jackson to the authorities. He never tried to file a lawsuit to get money out of him. And the way he spoke there was so matter-of-fact. There was no emotion there. It was just like, yeah, just recounting exactly how it was. I find him extremely believable. Extremely believable. And he is one of the ones where you can't be like, oh, he was only in it for the money. Yeah, he might have done a couple of interviews and got paid a couple of quid, but he wasn't trying to sue Michael Jackson for the massive amounts of money that some of these other people did. And I see the point where the people come in from a little bit with that. The way he described that, he doesn't sound like a liar to me. Now, as the years went on, Michael Jackson took part in a documentary made by Martin Bashir, which was unbelievable, right? It exposed us to such weirdness within Michael Jackson's character, particularly around children. Now, here's a clip of Michael Jackson looking at magazines, which we talked about earlier, where you'd look at those magazines of young kids in a hotel.
Just got this one in the corner of the shop. Because we want to be wide, I mean, okay. Yeah. For you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. That was owned by the hotel. You've just torn a page out. Thanks very much.
This is so sweet.
Show me? Oh, the picture. Yeah, it's lovely. Why do you love these pictures?
Yeah, that's okay.
It fills my heart with bliss. I feel God, really. I honestly do. I'm telling you straight out. My room is just decorated.
I know. I've been there.
Yeah.
Even your computer's got pictures, isn't it?
Yes.
On the screensaver. Yeah. Okay, we're ready.
They're talking about how Michael Jackson's room is decorated with pictures of kids, and even on his screensaver on his computer, there's pictures of kids. And he just sees pictures of kids in a magazine, tears the page out, and is like, love that. Now, for some people, that's just one of Michael Jackson's innocent little quirks. But when you've been accused of a lot of kids saying he touched me and all of this shit, that is fucking weird. Keeping those pictures for later. What goes on later, like? Now, in this documentary with Martin Bashir, we were introduced to a young kid who clearly had a very close relationship, whatever you want to call it, with Michael Jackson. And his name was Gavin Arvizo.
And then he finally said, okay, if you love me, you sleep on the bed. I was like, oh, man. And so I finally slept on the bed.
But Michael, you know, you're a 44-year-old man now. What do you get out of this? What do you get out of this?
Why can't you share your bed? The most loving thing to do is to share your bed with someone. You know?
You really think that?
Yeah.
Fucking insane. It's fucking insane. And in the actual documentary, Michael says to the kid, if you love me, you'll share my bed. Now, Michael insists that he was sleeping on the floor. But this documentary blew open Michael's life again with more allegations to come from Gavin Arvizo, including, allegedly, Michael Jackson giving Gavin wine in a soda can, which was known as Jesus juice or Disney juice. Apparently, Michael would then show him porn. He would touch Gavin, get Gavin to touch him back. And Gavin's brother also said, I seen some of this shit going on. Now, criticisms of Gavin's testimony would be that from the police questioning him and then him getting in court, and testifying, some of the details that he was giving slightly changed. There was inconsistencies in the timelines and things like that. Apparently, he'd said to his teacher when asked, did anything happen? He said to his teacher, no, nothing happened, which is so incredibly consistent with all kids who get molested in any way, shape or form, that when someone first questions them, they say, no, nothing happened, because they're little, they're scared, they're not brave, they're not confident, they're worried about what the fuck is going to happen. Maybe to the person that they feel that they're in some kind of relationship with, maybe to them. I think it's absolutely fair to question the validity of the story based on, is there inconsistencies, have they lied? But just because they said to someone it didn't happen and then later said it did, I don't think changes the believability of the story. And for some people, obviously Jackson fans, they hang on to that, because a lot of kids say, no, nothing happened initially. And that's the perfect way to defend Michael. Now, one thing that I do think adds weight to the Michael Jackson fans' criticism of this allegation is about his mother. You see, young Gavin got caught shoplifting at one point, and obviously the security guards got a hold of him. And the mother sued the security guards, claiming that they were beaten. And later, the little brother of Gavin admitted under oath that they'd lied. That they just made that up to get some cash, get a payout. And obviously that, for the credibility of the Arvisos alleging what had happened between Michael and Gavin, it was a massive blow to their credibility. This family also went to other celebrities for money and gifts when Gavin initially was diagnosed with cancer, which is how he ended up meeting Michael. So they look like the type to just be seeking a handout. And the mother was also investigated for welfare fraud. Michael's lawyers must have been thinking, thank fuck for this. This woman has got more skeletons in her closet than anyone. And honestly, I can see why they found Michael not guilty in this. And not to mention, there were other people stepping up defending Michael who were big names like Macaulay Culkin, saying, he's never touched me before. That would have been very powerful when you've got a situation that lacks credibility with this mother involved. Now, one of the lads who stepped up for Michael Jackson in this court case and said he never touched me was this guy, Wade Robson. He was on the stand and asked if he'd ever been touched by Michael, and he said, absolutely not. If he had, I wouldn't be here right now. And as some of you might know, if you've seen the documentary Leaving Neverland, he completely went back on all of that, which kind of calls into question that trial. Because if he'd got up there and said, yeah, he also abused me, maybe they might have believed the kid.
And started touching my penis underneath my pants, and there was nothing aggressive about it, nothing abrasive. I never felt scared or anything like that.
That's what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to a child and adult situation like this. Like Wade, allegedly, with all this going on, he loved Michael. And Michael wasn't violent towards him. Michael was soft. Michael made him feel loved back. So as wrong as an adult understands that this is, to a little kid who apparently was 7 years old, they don't have a fucking clue what's going on.
Moving my hands to touch his penis, which, was erect. Him talking to me, you and I were brought together by God. We were meant to be together, and this is us showing each other that we love each other. He would put my fingers on his nipples and tell me to squeeze them, and he would moan and react to that like it felt good, and I liked the feeling that was making him happy, that was pleasing him.
When I listen to this, I really struggle to understand how people can send these people abuse, and this sounds fucking horrific. And even if you think they might be lying, you don't know, and this is so detailed.
And going down and starting to, perform oral sex on me. And I remember him putting my hands on his head when he was down there. I'll never forget the feeling of his hair. That was rough, almost like a Brillo pad, like this roughness. And he's down there, and with his mouth on my 7-year-old penis. Quickly it turned into having me perform oral sex on him too.
Fuck me. I think we've heard enough here. The detail that he's gone into, even down to the feeling of the hair on Michael Jackson's head, severe. That is severe. And he talks at length about how Michael would tell him no one can ever find out about this.
If they ever found out what we were doing, about this sexual stuff, that he and I'd be pulled apart, and that we'd never be able to see each other again, and that he and I would go to jail.
That's insanely manipulative. And, you know, if true, you can see how making this young boy love him and fear the idea that they would ever be separated to create that level of jeopardy, like you can't ever say anything, you can't ever tell anyone. Of course, he's going to deny for the longest possible time that anything happened. This is a guy who was a Michael Jackson impersonator as a young kid, and he idolized, worshipped Michael Jackson, and now he's sort of in love with him in his tiny little mind, and now he doesn't want to lose him. Now, the other guy who was in Leaving Neverland was called James Safechuck, and he also went into great detail.
I was sleeping, and I woke up and Michael said that he had performed oral sex on me while I was sleeping. And I was like, oh, okay.
And look, I don't want to go into the graphic details anymore because it just gets worse and worse and worse. But what is interesting is the more he talks, he admits that in his tiny little mind, he was, in his feelings, in love with Michael Jackson.
He's the biggest entertainer, and he's a creative genius. And that creative genius thinks that you're special. What's not to like?
I think it's incredibly powerful for them to, as grown men, to say it didn't feel like we were being forced to do this. In our minds, we wanted to do this. We loved Michael. We wanted to please Michael, because I think that shows, if this is true and if you believe it's true, the level Michael was operating on as a manipulator to make these kids believe that this was their choice. This man was one of the most famous and idolized people in the world. Kids were so spellbound by him. He didn't have to force them to do anything, because whatever he wanted, they would do. And one key detail that he points out was that when he was in the bedroom with Michael Jackson, that there would be like alarms, bells, things like that going on, so that if someone was approaching the bedroom and you were in the bedroom, you would know about it long before they made it to the bedroom door.
It was just a hall that leads to his room. So there were bells, so you could have a moment of hearing them trip, and at least it alarmed him to when people are coming.
Now, apparently, Michael would play like games with kids like him, where he would make them get dressed as really quick as they could. Almost like a military drill, so that when people were coming, they would be used to getting dressed really, really quick. Now, the thing about those alarms and bells on the way to Michael's room going off is that that story was corroborated by Macaulay Culkin. Now, Macaulay Culkin said, he never touched me, he never did anything with me, but he said that those bells existed. Now, for me, why on earth do you need to know when someone is approaching your bedroom door? When you regularly are sleeping, and I'm talking hundreds and thousands of nights you're spending with these children in your bed, and you've got sensors like that in case someone just walks in, you know, uninterrupted, you don't know that they're coming. I think that's an unbelievable detail. I think that's fucking mental. I mean, obviously the spending the thousands of nights with kids is mental, but you know, you get the point. Like, so many things are adding up here. Even if you don't believe these guys, Macaulay Culkin said it, and he's defended him. Now, obviously, there was issues that people found with the stories that both of these guys told. For one thing, James Safechuck basically alleged that we were having sex in all these different areas in Neverland, and at one point he mentions a train station that wasn't actually built within the time frame that he had said that he was getting abused by Michael Jackson. It was actually built like a year later. Is it possible that he was there a year later and got his times wrong? Yes. Is it possible that he's lying completely? That's also possible. The main thing that people obviously point to is the fact that Wade Robson took the stand in the Gavin Orvizo trial and said, Michael Jackson never touched me, and then later changed the story after the death of Michael Jackson.
I knew I was lying. I knew that I had to lie. When I was 11 first, you know, I felt I had no other choice.
And at 22, what was your
And at
reasoning?
22, you know, it's so complicated, but it's a combination of still lots of fear wrapped up with shame. My whole life, my whole career would fall apart.
And then wrapped up in shame.
He always made me believe that I wanted everything that we did sexually just as much, if not more, than him.
And that is the key of the manipulation of Michael Jackson. In my opinion, if this is true, that is the ingredient that got so many of them to deny because they didn't want anything to happen to him. They loved him. And I think there's really basic explanations as to if Wade was covering for Michael, why he would do that. At 22 years old, Wade Robson was the choreographer for Britney Spears' NSYNC. He was writing music with NSYNC. He had an MTV show about dancing. He was a 22-year-old celebrity in his own right. And the whole premise of why he was a celebrity was he was the Michael Jackson kid. So if all of a sudden you've got all of these connections, everything's taken off of you, you're a 22-year-old man, and you come out and say, yeah, actually, the guy who I've based my whole legacy off, he actually touched me. It's going to destroy everything, potentially. And to be 22 and have the bravery to speak out like that takes so much balls. Most 22-year-olds don't fucking have that. And remember, that was 2005. The culture of admiration for those who speak out bravely and, you know, tell their stories like that, the Me Too thing, that wasn't around then. It was the opposite, especially when the fans of Wade Robson became his fans via Michael Jackson. You're all of a sudden going to have all of your fans turning on you, hating on you, which Michael Jackson fans are famous for. I don't blame him for what he did. Obviously, he shouldn't have done it. If that's the truth, and he's saying, I was touched as well, he should have fucking spoken up for this kid. But I get why he covered, and he does go into greater detail about this.
I would have dreams of Michael being in jail and being killed in jail or dying in jail. I mean, just like those two things, Michael Jackson and jail, just did not go together for me. I mean, I still loved him deeply.
Now, people are going to say that these guys changed their tune because they're after hundreds of millions from Michael Jackson's estate. And yeah, that is possible. But when you've publicly idolized, worshipped in the way that Wade Robson has done about Michael Jackson for the length of time he has, to change your story to such a degree and to accuse your idol, your hero, of doing things like that to you, it's so serious, it's so severe. And you're not the first one to say this about him. I think this is very powerful. And you know, when people say, oh, well, he changed his story, he said, I've actually seen people who like are professionals in this field go, well, he said something else at 22 years old. So therefore, if he's saying, you know, something else at 40, well, we've got to take what you said at 22. I've spoken about this before in that I had a babysitter once, you know, try and expose himself to me, that sort of thing. Luckily, it didn't go too far. But sometimes, you know, if you know a guy has done something wrong to you like that, you don't want to fuck their whole life up. When you know their family, you're connected to them and you know, because it usually is someone you know and all of that shit. It's not as black and white and as simple as people make it out. And I think it makes sense that when Michael died, he then felt like, okay, now I can speak about it, because it would have been hard for him to do that to Michael while he was alive, knowing how not only would it have made Michael feel, but it would have made him feel because of how much love he had for this guy. I don't think he wanted to hurt him in life. And I think that that was a massive factor for why he held off until he died. And a lot of people will say, well, he died, he can no longer defend himself, and you're just being opportunistic and looking for the money. You know what? Maybe that is true as well. Maybe that's another explanation for it. But these allegations are mounting the fuck up, am I right? Now into a 2016 allegation from a Jane Doe, which is obviously the anonymous name that they give to women who have made allegations. This is the first girl we had accuse Michael Jackson. Allegedly, this girl was 12 years old at the time, and this was in the 80s, apparently. A lot of the same sort of allegations, fondling, rubbing himself on them, that sort of thing. So even though it was now a girl and not a boy, very similar story. And as with all of these people, I haven't said in every single case, with all of them, it's the phone conversations, the gifts, the showering of attention. And money. Apparently this girl had received a lot of money from Michael Jackson, or at least his companies. $900,000 was the claim, apparently, of hush money to keep her silent. Now, this came apparently in the combination of checks ranging from 600 grand to 150 grand, 130 grand to smaller ones. And apparently she even had love letters from Michael Jackson. Now, the criticisms of these claims were that they came out 30 years after they allegedly took place and after the death of Michael Jackson. And that on these checks, some of them actually had, they were bank issued, so there was no name visible on them. Now, interestingly, some of these checks were labeled as entertainment expenses through Michael Jackson's company. So she got a lot of money out of Michael Jackson's companies. That is true. And that's damning for me. Like, what the fuck are you sending hundreds of thousands of dollars to a young girl for? Like, that is clear sign that something's going on here. And apparently one of the checks was made out to a friend of hers, kind of on her behalf. And people look at that like, oh, see, that proves it wrong. It's like, well, yeah, like, that doesn't prove anything wrong. What the fuck are you sending her mate all that money for still? And now we move on to one of the most recent allegations from the Castillo family. Yeah, an entire fucking family calling him out.
We treated him as he was part of our family and that he was not the king of pop, but just a human being.
He always called us the family of love, my second family.
Attack!
We grew up with him literally since he was 3 and I was 5, and so being around him was just normal.
Now, apparently, for years, this lot, like the others, defended Michael Jackson. They even went on TV shows denying anything happened many, many years ago. But lately, the story has changed.
And I was just sitting on the bed with him during the day, and I was just playing my Game Boy. And I remember he just went to me and just pulled down my shorts. And I didn't even pay attention to that because I didn't even it didn't stun me or anything. I remember just keep playing my Game Boy, and he took down my shorts, and then he started performing oral sex.
Now, there's 5 siblings in total in this family who are all part of a lawsuit against the Jackson estate here. They're claiming that all of those kids were getting abused from like the ages of 7 to 8 years old. And again, it's the same things, the grooming, the showering with gifts, the showering of attention, and then the Jesus juice or the Disney juice, and eventually raping them. And these people have said it's taken them years to sort of process the trauma, to get the strength to come forward, and actually watching a Leaving Neverland documentary help with that. And in 2020, they were paid by the Jackson estate $16 million. And I've got to think that they must have shown them something to make the Jackson estate scared in order to get that level of money out of them. They must have some level of evidence, otherwise why would they have paid them? But again, it's another massive payout to another person accusing Michael Jackson of touching them. How many of these people? You know what I mean? It's a fucking shitload. The family now were saying, well, actually, that was a coercive payment. We actually deserve a whole lot more for the shit that we've been through, and we want hundreds of millions. And again, people who are fans of Michael Jackson will point to that and go, you see, you don't want justice, you want money. And look, I do think that is an important point to take note of, but there are so many people accusing him of things, and not just people accusing him of doing it to them, but people who were working at Neverland, for example, and said, we seen him do stuff. There was a housekeeper / maid known as Adrian McManus. She claimed she's seen Michael Jackson kissing boys, touching their butts, like fondling their groin areas. Like, she worked there. A security guard who worked there called Ralph Chacon, he claimed that he seen Michael Jackson perform oral sex on a boy, was naked after a shower with him. The chef, even Philip Lamarck, he said that he's seen Michael Jackson touching Macaulay Culkin inappropriately. Is it possible that Macaulay Culkin is holding that secret in for the sake of Michael Jackson and for his own sake? A housekeeper called Mark Quindoy also said he's seen Michael touching boys inappropriately. Faye Quindoy, the missus of Mark Quindoy, she was a housekeeper as well. She said she's seen Michael Jackson abusing boys, touching them inappropriately, all sorts. So in total that we know of, there's like 12 accusers who say something's happened to me at the hands of Michael Jackson, and 7 people who've said, I've seen Michael Jackson do stuff to kids. That's 19 people in total. And you think, like, after the first kid accused him, let's just say that kid was lying and it was all a money grab, Michael Jackson, if this was not his thing, would never have put himself in a situation like that again, where he could ever be accused of anything like this again, as any normal grown man would. And look, a normal person wouldn't have put themselves in that position in the first place, but you get the point. For Michael Jackson to continually be involved in all of these children and to put himself in a position where so many of them are coming out with all these stories after he paid $23 million out. All right, it was his insurance. Who gives a fuck? 23 million quid to the first kid who accused him. He kept on doing it. Why? The only logical explanation for me is he was addicted. He couldn't help himself. He didn't care. He didn't care what people thought. He used this excuse of, oh, I just love kids and all of that. He couldn't help it. He had no interest in women or men, clearly. We've fucking clearly proven that. And yeah, some kids say, oh, he didn't touch me like that. Yeah, Macaulay Culkin, for example. Do you know if I was like a dark genius like Michael Jackson clearly was? Who's the one kid out of all of them, you don't do that to. The most famous child in the world, man. Of course he wasn't going to do that to Macaulay Culkin because that was the one kid who would bury him. And on a personal level, I'm glad because Home Alone would be ruined. But maybe he did. Do you know what I mean? I think the narrative that he didn't touch Macaulay Culkin, as if that proves anything when there's fucking 19 people saying we've seen him or he did something to me. When Macaulay Culkin was like, yeah, he did actually have alarms on the way to his bedroom. It's a bit weird. And what makes me laugh is there's the other thing that people say is the FBI though. The FBI investigated him.
Anything about Michael Jackson's sexual assault allegations unless you're telling me how false they were. Unless you're telling me about how the FBI investigated Michael for 17 years and didn't find anything. If you're not going to tell me that part of the story, I don't care about the propaganda that's been put out all these years.
Charlemagne there says, don't talk to me about Michael Jackson unless you're going to say that the FBI investigated for 17 years and they found nothing. It's amazing if you repeat something enough times, even if it's total bullshit, it sounds true. The FBI never, ever opened an independent investigation into Michael Jackson. What Charlemagne has just said is complete and utter bullshit, and a man in his position in this industry should know fucking better than to talk things that he hasn't even put 5 seconds of research into. The fucking idiot. The only time the FBI were ever involved was in a support capacity. They provided a little bit of technical assistance to the local police who were in control of an investigation into Michael Jackson on 2 occasions. The Jordan Chandler case, which lasted 1 year, and the Gavin Arvizo case, which lasted a little over a year. And again, it was just support, like forensics and background checks. They weren't in control of the investigation. And there was a whole chunk of years in between those that nothing was getting done by the FBI. So for you to sit there and say 17 years, what a fucking lie. And I get people love Michael Jackson, but there are actual people who may be real victims here who were just dismissed on the basis of something that you keep repeating that isn't even fucking true. I think the reason Michael Jackson carried on this obsession, this addiction, even after the first kid accused him and he had to make that payout is because he was not in control of himself. This is his thing. This is Michael Jackson's bedroom the day that he died, and there's pictures of little babies, little kids. Fucking weird, man. Why would a grown man who's been investigated multiple times for pedophilia have this sort of shit in his bedroom? And people look at Michael Jackson because they love the music, and I understand, like, your love of one of the most celebrated pop stars of all time, it is going to cloud your judgment when it comes to logic. You're not going to be able to remove the pop star from this and just be like, this is a 40-odd-year-old guy we're talking about here and he's not a superstar. But is he honest about other stuff as well? Is he honest about his love life where he claims to have a marriage? Clearly not. Couldn't give a fuck about women. He obviously never was in love with Lisa Marie. She couldn't even admit that. He never was around, clearly didn't shag her. He's not had a single woman convince anyone that he shagged them in 50 years on this planet. Admitted by the woman who birthed his children, another thing he lied about, saying that it was his sperm, clearly lied about that. Oh, and guess what else he lied about? His fucking face. Apparently, this happens through vitiligo. Don't you know? It's funny because I've seen people with vitiligo, and when they go through, the skin discoloration and everything like that, their face structure doesn't change completely. And yet Michael Jackson, in interview after interview after interview, would lie to people about this. So let's not act like Michael Jackson was the most truthful person in the world and he had a problem with lying. He lied about all sorts. He was not an honest person. That is clear as day. And yes, people had a motive. Everyone had a motive in this. Michael Jackson had a motive for his personal reputation. The people who accused him had a motive to some degree because they would get a big payout from it. And the fans have a motive because they don't want that music that they so desperately cling to be tainted for the rest of their life. So they're going to believe him no matter what. And unfortunately, as with all cases like this, there is no DNA evidence because it takes forever for people to come forward because it's so traumatic. But you know what there is? There's a pattern. There's long phone calls that he used to make at all hours of the night, through all around the country, all around the world even. He was calling kids in Australia, for fuck's sake. 40-odd-year-old man sitting on the phone to a little boy in Australia for hours on end. What does a 40-odd-year-old man have in common with a little kid? Think about that. All the days and months. I seen it. The amount of days he spent with each kid, in the hundreds of days per child, overnight in his bed. That's after being accused and going through hell, apparently. And he still kept on doing it. And let's be real, if we're looking at the pattern, there was a Jane Doe who was anonymous, a little girl who apparently accused him. But the overwhelming majority of people, if you're looking at grown women, grown men, little boys, little girls, it was little boys that he spent almost his whole fucking life with. Would look like he had a bit of a type, wouldn't it now? Spent a lot more time with little boys than he did his fucking wife, didn't he? And yet people want to la 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 I'm sorry, like, everything is pointing that there's something seriously fucking wrong with this shit. And you know what? Let's just look at the numbers. Let's, you know, take the emotion out of it, because if you love his music, you're going to be hella emotional. Let's just look at numbers here. The number of adult women or men who claim to have slept with Michael Jackson in his 50 years on this planet is exactly one person. Lisa Marie Presley, who didn't convince anyone when she said that she slept with Michael Jackson. Would I have married him if I didn't? Not very believable, is it? Number of kids in his 50 years on this planet who said Michael Jackson touched me. 12. You're the most famous man on the planet. You've been one of the richest people in the world for most of your life. You've been accused of child molestation. There's one woman out there who says, I slept with him, who doesn't convince anyone. And there's 12 kids out there who say, you've touched me. With 7 other people minimum who say, I seen him do stuff like that as well. 19, if you're counting them. How likely is it for a man who had no real relationships with adults in his life, accused by countless kids like this, to have been innocent? And it's sad, because I know so many people who love Michael Jackson's music, and I understand it was fantastic music. But if this was any other person on the planet who wasn't named Michael Jackson and who didn't have those hits, there's no fucking way you would be claiming absolutely innocent, unequivocally innocent. I was found not guilty. Yeah, against one kid. There was a lot more out there. And even that kid might have been telling the truth. Who knows? And unfortunately, because of the lack of DNA evidence, which is consistent with all cases like this, we can never say for absolute certainty. But I tell you what we can say. What the fuck is more likely? And right now, when you look at it all, I think it's quite obvious. But you let me know in the comments below where you're leaning, what you think. And I know there'll be all the Michael Jackson fans. Honestly, you're barking up the wrong tree if you think you're going to bother me, because I'm hardened in this game and I don't give a fuck. I only want to speak the truth. And this is my opinion. And I think that the people out there who are going after these potential victims are a fucking disgrace. But look, let me know what you think in the comments below. Hit that like button, subscribe to the True Geordie YouTube channel. I'll see you on the next one.